With a winter storm on the way, many are worried about losing power this weekend.
And it can happen in storms like this, and utility companies are ready to work. We have Drew Gardner from LG&E joining us right now. Drew, thank you so much for being here this evening. So let's get right to it. What work, if any, is already being done to help make sure that power stays on for so many in our community?
Well, like many of all of you, we've been keeping a close eye on this since really early in the week. We've been really monitoring the forecasts, talking to our neighboring utilities, sort of starting to mobilize resources ahead of what comes in this weekend. So right now we have more than 1,000 restoration personnel that are positioned at our 40 crew centers that are across our service territory. We've also brought in additional behind-the-scenes support staff to assist in restoration efforts. And what we've started to do is try to reposition some of our crews among those crew centers to the areas that we think are going to be impacted most. The trouble that we've had really leading up to this storm is just figuring out where that freezing rain is going to end up, because that's really the thing that is going to put people most at risk of losing power. And the snow, our systems generally handle that. It's wind and ice that cause the problem. So we've started to move some of the resources to those areas that we anticipate are going to be seeing some of those impacts. And we will continue to reposition those resources as that system begins to move in and we see where those real impacts happen.
Drew, you used to be a reporter in the city of Louisville. You've now moved on to the communication side for LG&E. What is the one thing that surprised you when you went behind the scenes that you're like, people in the public need to know this when the power goes out?
I mean, really what surprised me is just literally how many people are working around the clock behind the scenes during events like this, leading up to it, during and after. I know it can feel very inconvenient to not have power for any amount of time. It's frustrating. I knew that feeling before being on this side, but there really are people that are working nonstop behind the scenes to try to restore power safely and as quickly as possible. And really, I mean, it just all comes down to preparation. We just really want customers to be prepared if the power goes out, while we're working to hopefully make sure that doesn't happen. If it does, we want to make sure that restoration takes as short amount of time as possible to disrupt those inconveniences.
And Drew, we've talked about how this is such a giant storm taking up a huge portion of this country. And a lot of times when there are power outages in our community, crews from different states, neighboring states come in to help. But since this is such a big storm, how does that impact you if you're trying to get crews from out of town to come in, but they might be dealing with their own situation where they live?
Yeah, in this situation, it's kind of like everyone's drawing from the same pool. So it really is kind of like a wait and see to see who is impacted the worst and who fended off a little better, and we'll be able to send resources. I think there's going to be those resources there. We're having those conversations, but they may be coming from further away, or it may just take a little longer than it normally does just because of the wide spans that this storm is spreading across the country. There are just so many utilities that really they cannot afford to release any crews right now until they know what they're going to be up against once the storm moves through.
And really quickly, we're running out of time here, but if you lose power, what's the message on how long somebody should be prepared to be without it? And what should they do if the power goes off?
In a situation like this where we're talking about ice and then potentially more than a foot of snow, I mean, that is going to limit or at least restrict how quickly our crews can get to some of those scenes. Just like we're telling people who get on the roads, if they have to take it slow, we're telling our crews to take it slow in order to get to those outages and restore them safely. So there is potential that some, especially remote areas, could be out for, a prolonged period of time. Of course, we're hoping that's not the case. So the best thing is to make sure you have chargers, batteries, things like that. They're going to keep you at least a power supply to stay communicated during that outage. And really, the cold weather is what's critical during this particular storm is have ways to stay warm and also be safe. Don't be using your oven, your stove to heat up the house. If you have a generator, make sure you're using it outside to avoid any kind of carbon monoxide. Take those safety steps seriously when you're trying to stay warm.
Safety is first. Drew Gardner with LG&E, thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thanks for having me.